Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Shah, for inviting me to be part of Spandan. And I think you were absolutely right. One conversation with him, and I was convinced that I could be here. Otherwise, we were chatting up with a lot of people, and it never worked. So, thank you, Dr. Shah. Good afternoon, my fellow panelists, faculty members, and our future leaders. I have to say something before I start on the topic. By virtue of my earlier roles leading campus initiatives for American Express, for Asia Pacific, and later for Microsoft, I share a very, very special bond with students. I have probably been extremely privileged to have walked the annals of all the IIMs, all the IITs in the country, and some of the most prestigious institutes around the world. To have, spoken to the students recruited from there. And so it's really, really a privilege to be back amongst all of you. And then now let me check, are you all awake after that delicious lunch?
Yes, ma'am.
I think Ganesh did a good job of it, so I would be fine. All right, so I just have a few thoughts to share. Let's see. So just quoting Willie Taylor here, the reason lightning doesn't strike in the same place is that the same place isn't there the second time. Using a cliche, change is the only constant that we have. And I know, Ganesh spoke, Gomi spoke. It's really, really, the world is changing every single minute. And especially in today's technological, it's difficult to survive without changing ourselves. So I looked at it from two stakeholders' point of view, change management in the context of globalization. One is, of course, organizational. And globalization is, in a sense, change management at the very fundamental level. And why do we want to change? Because there is some dissatisfaction at some level with what's the current state. So organizations say, there is more opportunity to expand into new markets. You've already exceeded what you could do with the domestic business. So you want to go in the unfamiliar territory, and change and transition would work in tandem. And the second very important part of it is, of course, the individual. So at the individual level, globalization includes cross-border cultural exchanges, and understanding of this multicultural environment becomes a key necessity. Ganesh already said it's easy to change systems and processes. We alluded to that throughout our conversation in the earlier panel discussion as well. But it's extremely difficult to change mindsets, behaviors, and attitudes. And so HR actually has a very, very important role to play. Change management, if you really do it well, makes the company ready for embracing the globalization, which is again a key imperative. I do have some points here in terms of HR to play the role of change agents, but I actually want to relate a personal experience. I don't know if some of you have noticed, since morning I have worked with DuPont performance coatings, and now I was introduced with Exalta coating systems. So it's been in a transition already. I really want to talk about it. For the last 1 year, I have actually been in this change, like completely immersed into it, both as an employee and leading it from the forefront as part of the HR leadership for the organization. So just about a year back, DuPont hived off one of their businesses, DuPont Performance Coatings, sold it off to a private equity company. And when you are working with an organization which has a 210-year-old history, you rarely ever think of, what's going to happen next, which is not the case otherwise. Otherwise, the event of recent years have left a lot of people troubled about what's going to happen next. Employees worry about, how they might be affected. They wonder if they will measure up to the demands of change that's happening around them. But I would actually say I was quite insulated from all of it. As an employee working in one of the oldest companies in the world, literally. But when that happened, it hit you hard, and it has both a lot of emotional implications, and not just, from an organizational point of view. To be able to manage both at a personal level of how am I going to respond to this change, and to be able to lead the 3,000 employees across Asia Pacific that I'm responsible for in helping them lead through this whole process of transition has been one of my greatest challenges over the last year. Not in terms of, people were saying we could lose customers because the competition tried to tell, oh, you are no longer DuPont, so there would be no continuity. To be able to manage how you would go and talk to the competition and to your family. I had a very interesting incident. Our finance head didn't wear the, those badges, sort of the entry thing. So I said, where's your card? He says, oh, I left it in my laptop bag. I said, why? He said, I have to go home. I have to keep it back in my laptop bag before I go home because I still can't talk and tell my daughter that I do not work for DuPont. It was a real example. It's so difficult to say that I now work for Exalta Coating Systems and people will say, what? It's not about the organization. The organization is the same, the people are the same, the values are the same, the culture is the same. But it was such an identity crisis. So to be able to relate and wade through all of that, empathize that this is real for you and this is real for me, has been an immense challenge. I also, though I was fortunate always to have been working with multicultural organizations throughout and had a whole lot of global exposure, but now with literally being responsible for 10 countries across Asia, I was talking to Dr. Shah the other day. I'm telling myself, do I really need to go and learn Mandarin? Do I learn Korean? I don't know what to learn because I'm so confused in a way to say, how do I really help all the people across these different countries? So globalization in every sense has pervaded my life completely. And then I also need to go and find leaders who have really based on their ability, capability, and capacity to influence others. Because it's no longer, you no longer have the ability to do things the same way. There is a cultural transformation that is coming in, and how do you really respond to it? So, in fact, in the morning, as somebody said, human response, right? That's really true. The other thing I have been, it's all about empowering yourself and empowering others as well, especially in the midst of change. Empowering yourself is so very important because otherwise you would approach things with a victim mindset. You will say, oh, this has been inflicted upon me. And that's not the language which is helpful. It's not about, inflicted with change. When we say change is the only constant, then someday or the other things will bound to change. So how do I empower myself to respond to that situation and actually do the very best in it? And then about visualizing a desirable future state. So how do you align people again to a new goal? How do you say this is what our future state is going to be? And HR, of course, has a very important role in, in all of it. So having learned all of that, I do want to change. You said, Charles Darwin's survival, so I prepared a survival kit for you. But so globalization, as I said, something that cannot be avoided anymore, and it's there to stay. Change management decides whether business would succeed or fail because all businesses are bound to change. So here's my survival kit for all of you. The organization is going to change, it must, if it is to survive and prosper. So rather than banging your head against the wall of reality and losing your spirit, invest your energy in making quick adjustments. Today has a very temporary quality about it. Predictability is passive, vague is vogue. The ability to improvise that has become an essential skill. We must learn to bob and weave, to bounce whenever change hits, to pivot, flex, operate in a fog. So instead of futilely trying to stabilize the situation, we must learn to exploit the instability. And again, quoting Werner Erhard, ride the horse in the direction that it's going. So if things are changing, you must change as well. You're all academic students. I'm not going to go through this model, but if you do want to go and look up from an academic point of view, there is global change management processes. There is enough work done around it. You could refer Martin and DuPont, and there's very, very structured models. I'm not going to talk about it right now. And thank you again. This is because Ganesh already said I'm a photographer, so this is my way of saying thank you to all of you and Udaipur. This was shot yesterday on the phone.
Thank you, Ms. Medha Jain.